these are the styles of music that were popular in Colombia. And my dad was a DJ.
Okay.
I referenced earlier that my dad had a factory job.
What's his name, man?
Jose Aguilar.
All right, I want to know. Yeah,
Jose
Aguilar.
Marcelino Aguilar is his name. And he worked at a factory, and back then, minimum wage, bro, was like $4.50 an hour. Yeah. So we lived in a one-bedroom apartment in a tenement building in Jackson Heights, Queens. And I'm not saying this for shock value or anything like that, but I remember having like mice and roaches for roommates, you know?
I'm
exactly.
one of those guys.
One bedroom apartment, and my brother and I used to sleep on cots in the living room. And my parents obviously slept in their bedroom. And I remember in the mornings when we'd wake up right before going to school, we'd fold the cots up and then push them into a corner so that they're not in the way when we had guests come over or whatever the case. And we'd go off to school, you know, do our thing at school, come back home. My brother and I would pretty much look out for each other. My brother's older than me, so he would always have to kind of like pick me up from school. And then if he wanted to go to a friend's house, he'd have to take me with him, kind of thing. And we'd end up back home maybe, let's say, around 4:30, 5 o'clock. My dad would get home like around 5:30, 6, eat dinner. My mom, you know, I love her, man. She used to like come home from work. They actually worked at the same factory. She would come home from work and cook dinner.
We got to give Mom a shout out. What's her name, too?
Clara Ruth Aguilar.
Clara Aguilar.
Yep. And I say all that to say, when we would finish dinner, the way my dad would unwind would be by playing music. So he would play a lot of the music that he grew up listening to in Colombia, the salsa, the merengue, the cumbia. So my early memories of music are sitting in the living room watching Starsky and Hutch while my dad played music, you know?
Are you bilingual too?
I'm bilingual too. My Spanish, you know, I would say it's at about 85, 90%.
Okay.
But English is my first language because I was born here and I was around English-speaking kids.
Right.
The cool thing with that is my parents were smart. They knew that if they didn't surround me around Spanish-speaking kids, that I'd lose that part of the language, my heritage, right? So they would put me in bilingual classes in school, although I didn't need it because I spoke perfect English. They would put me in classes that were bilingual so that I was around other Spanish-speaking kids. So I feel that had a huge impact on me, you know, retaining the language.
And total sidebar, I was a Spanish major in college because my Spanish teacher took an interest in me and told me to pursue what was important to me.
Right.
You know, so he's a part of my DJ story. And so I was called Esteban, you know, in high school. And I'm just like, damn, Rob Aguilar. I mean, you know, Rob Aguilar. Okay. It's just crazy that we have so much diversity. But speaking to diversity, what does it look like on the ground in New York where you are from a, you know, demographic perspective? What do you see?
Love that question. Well, what does it look like now or when I was a kid?
When you were a kid, yeah. I want to, yeah.
So I grew up in Jackson Heights, Queens. And to this day, Jackson Heights, Queens is arguably the most diverse part of the world. There are, within a 3-block range, you could eat Afghan food, Colombian food, Chinese food, Brazilian food. There's every aspect of culture and ethnicity and race in Jackson Heights, and that's why I still live there, because it's so diverse. And I've traveled the world, bro. Like, I've gone to Lebanon, Russia, all over Europe, all over Asia, Australia, Canada. I've traveled from the East Coast of America to the West, the North, the South. There is no place as diverse as Jackson Heights, Queens. Wow. And so, exactly.
Salsa, like master.
Roberto Roena, another Puerto Rican legend.
Willie Colon?
Willie Colon, right, exactly. So it's just interesting thinking back to my childhood and how lucky and fortunate I was to be in an environment that wasn't just one single race, you know? And I feel that that is the beauty of New York City in the 1970s. And without that dynamic, you would not have hip hop today.